Under President John Adams, maybe even to the case of the colony of New York versus John Peter Zenger in 1734. Our fifth story in the countdown: whenever it started, it sure as heck ain't finished. And how well or how poorly the war in Iraq might be going, the one here on our soil, the government versus the news, has just escalated anew, and it is approaching the carpet bombing stage. Exhibit A, Wheeling, West Virginia, where Joe McCarthy started his string of the most memorable speeches. Today stops on the George W. Bush "I am nothing if not deeply misunderstood" express. Say goodbye to that brief experiment of letting just anybody ask questions unscreened. This was almost an entirely military audience.
It seems that our major media networks don't want to portray the good. They just want to focus.
Just got to keep talking, and one of the word of mouth. There's blogs, there's internet, there's all kinds of ways to communicate, which is literally changing the way people are getting their information. And so, if you're concerned, I would suggest that you reach out to some of the groups that are supporting the troops, that have got internet sites, and just keep the word moving. And that's one way to deal with an issue without suppressing a free press. We will never do that in America. I mean, if the minute we start trying to suppress our press, we look like the Taliban.
A kinder, gentler version of what we heard yesterday from Mr. Bush, suggesting that the media is getting played by the insurgency.
In spite of the bad news on television, and there is bad news. You brought it up. You said, how do I react to a bombing that took place yesterday? It's precisely what the enemy understands is possible to do. I'm not suggesting you shouldn't talk about it. I'm certainly not being, please don't take that as criticism. But it also is a realistic assessment of the enemy's capability to affect the debate. And they know that. They're capable of blowing up innocent life so it ends up on your TV show.
Members of the media's own right flank also getting in on the act. Case in point, conservative radio talk show host Laura Ingraham claiming on the Today Show that the few reporters still willing to go to Iraq are not man nor woman enough to leave their hotel rooms.
The Today Show spends all this money to send people to the Olympics, which is great. It was great programming. All this money for where in the world is Matt Lauer? Bring the Today Show to Iraq. Bring the Today Show to Tal Afar. Do the show from the 4th ID at Camp Victory. And then when you talk to those soldiers on the ground, when you go out with the Iraqi military, when you talk to the villagers, when you see the children, then I want NBC to report on only the IEDs, only the killings, only the reprisals. To do a show from Iraq means to talk to the Iraqi military, to go out with the Iraqi military, to actually have a conversation with the people, instead of reporting from hotel balconies about the latest IEDs going off.
Hours later, Ms. Ingraham sharing her thoughts with Ted Baxter himself, by which time some sane person had reminded her of the death of our own David Bloom at the war's outset.
Is it your opinion that NBC News spins the war negative?
I think that the coverage of the war by NBC that I've really focused on, especially since I was in Iraq last month, to me it seems bizarrely focused only on the IEDs, only on the latest reprisal killings that are taking place.
Do you think NBC News is actively trying to undermine the war in Iraq?
I'm going to keep watching it. I know there are brave people. David Bloom was over there covering the war when he died.
So you don't know whether they are or not?
I don't know. I think the media obviously has an element underneath it that really despises Bush, and it's blinding them.
Of course, ask American voters, at least ask more than just the pre-screened, and a very different picture emerges. In the latest poll from CBS News, only 23% of those surveyed actually believe that the president is describing the situation in Iraq accurately. 66% say he's painting things better than they actually are. 6% say he's painting them worse, compared to the 59% who think the media is reporting things either accurately or better than events warrant. Only 31% of the opinion that the media is making things sound worse in Iraq. Perhaps the very same 31% in the same poll who approve of how the president is handling the situation there. There is also the reality check Wolf of Newsweek magazine. But before we do, a note about Laura Ingraham's comments. I've known her a long time. I'll in fact give you the caveat that I've known her socially. But that hotel balcony crack was unforgivable. It was unforgivable to the memory of David Bloom. It was unforgivable in consideration of Bob Woodruff and Doug Vogt. It was unforgivable in the light of what happened to Michael Kelly and what happened to Michael Weiskopf. It was unforgivable with Joe Carroll still a hostage in Iraq. And it's not only unforgivable of her, it was desperate and it was stupid. As promised,